Hey, what's going on? I'm Matt O'Leary back with another video, and today's topic is going to be the Jets and their NFL draft, how that went this past weekend. But before we get started, I just want to mention that you can follow me on social media at Matt O'Leary NY. And now that we got that out of the way, we can get started with today's video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each pick, and then at the end, I'll give them a grade, and we'll talk about each pick along the way and how it helped the Jets or potentially hurt the Jets in their development of their team. So let's start with the first round, and their first round pick was Quinn and Williams, defensive tackle, Alabama. They had the third overall pick, and supposedly the best player in the draft fell to them at number 3 for the fourth time in the last 5 years. Yeah, for the fourth time in the last 5 years. So the reason I bring that up is because everyone said last year Sam Darnold was going number 1. He fell to number 3. Everyone said Jamal Adams was this can't-miss guy. He fell to number 6. This year, obviously, I have Quinn and Williams. And then in 2015, which is going to bring me into this conversation that I want to have about the Quinn and Williams pick, everyone said Leonard Williams was the best player in the draft. And the reason why I'm not in love with the Quinn pick is because you already have Leonard Williams on the roster. And if you have to add 2 interior defensive linemen in the top 10 within a 4 or 5 year span, I don't know if I love that logic. Some things that I do like about this pick, though: he had 8 sacks last year, 19 and a half tackles for a loss. He's only 21 years old, and yes, he is a really good prospect. I'm not hating on Quinn and Williams, the prospect. I just don't know if I love loading it up on interior defensive linemen because the Jets desperately needed an edge rusher. We'll talk about what they did at that position in a little bit, but like I said, 5 out of the last 9 first-round picks, 5. Quinn and Williams, Leonard Williams, Quentin Coples, Sheldon Richardson, Muhammad Wilkerson, all essentially interior defensive linemen. How many times have we seen this happen? And people are really quick to forget that the same things that are being said about Quinn and Williams were said about Leonard Williams just a few years ago. He was a can't-miss prospect, one of the best prospects they've ever seen. And listen, I think Quinn probably will be better than Leonard Williams at the NFL level, but I just don't know how much of an impact it's going to have overall. If anything, this just shows that they'll probably move on from Leonard Williams after this year. He's an unrestricted free agent, probably going to move on from him. And that's not essentially what you want from someone who you took in the first round, a top 6 pick, just 5 years ago. So that I was a little bit questionable on. Again, good prospect, but I would have preferred to go Josh Allen in this spot or move back. They go Quinn and Williams. I understand the logic. I'm just not 100% sold that it was the right move. Their next pick is in round 3, pick 68, and that is Jacki Pickens out of Florida. Now, here's where you address your edge rusher. He's an edge, and this is a phenomenal pick because that's what they needed, but there's a caveat here. This is someone who probably should have went in the first round with the amount of talent that he has, but there's just a motivational thing with him that some people aren't sold on. Some believe that his pre-draft process is why he dropped. He's not motivated, not great off the field, a little bit of problem. But again, if he is someone who is that talented, who had one point had a first round grade and was a top 15 player in this draft, you got to take him. And the Jets were smart to do that. He had 11 sacks last year at Florida. And like I said, in the third round, it's worth adding someone with a little bit of a risk at a position of need. That's why I like this pick. They went out and added talent at a position of need. They didn't double down on a position they already had pretty good depth at. Then with their second pick in the third round, at pick number 92, they took Shula Doga, who is an offensive tackle at USC. He blocked for Sam Darnold in college, and he seems like a pretty good prospect. Now, what they're probably going to do with him is they're going to have him sit behind both Calvin Beachum and Brandon Shell, who are going to be your 2 starting tackles this year, but both of those guys are unrestricted free agents at the end of the year. So in all likelihood, they will groom him to become one of their starters. Whether it's on the left side or on the right side, he is going to be a developmental prospect. But again, he's on the younger side. He, just like Polite and just like Quinn and Williams, is 21 years old. I love drafting young prospects because, one, they could be developed, and two, you have them through their youth. Instead of you draft someone at 23, 24, you have them at 23, 24, 25, 26, and then you're paying them at the back end of their 20s and overpaying for someone instead of getting a younger talent and keeping them throughout their prime and paying them in their prime years instead of overpaying when they're a little bit past their prime. Story for another day. But so far in their first 3 picks, I think they did a pretty good job. Again, don't love the Quinn pick, but you can't deny his talent. And then with Polite, I think he is extremely talented. It's a high floor type of player who could, at minimum, still be your best pass rusher. And then Doga is a nice developmental swing in the 3rd round. Day 3 is when things get a little rough for me. I didn't love the day 3 picks. The one that I probably liked the best was in the 4th round. Trayvon Wesco out of West Virginia. He plays tight end. And I know some people are like, well, you have Chris Herndon. Why are you taking a tight end again? Well, you desperately need a number 2 tight end. They really do. I can't see Tomlinson or Jordan Leggett get any more targets. I just can't. Neither of those 2 guys are good number 2 tight ends. Wesco has the potential to be a good tight end, especially for a number 2 tight end in the NFL. He's primarily a blocker, which is good. That helps in the running game. But he can catch in the short to maybe intermediate stuff, where obviously the more receiving tight end would be Herndon. So I don't hate this pick. I think he could probably be right from the get-go your number 2 tight end and be fair to okay in the passing game. You don't need him to do anything crazy, but if he's a very good blocker like everyone in the draft seems to think that he is, then you're fine. Then you're in pretty good shape. So I don't mind this pick. I think it's okay. There's other tight ends that I like better than him, but I don't hate this pick. Rounds 5 and 6 is where I really don't start to not like things. So in round 5, pick 157, Blake Cashman, linebacker out of Minnesota. I don't like this pick at all. So one scout said, and I quote, he's a limited linebacker who isn't big and isn't fast. So an undersized linebacker who isn't fast, I don't know if I'm loving that. And again, you're already adding to a position that you have a ton of depth at. Interior linebacker, how important is that really? And you have Mosley, you have Williamson, and you still have Darren Lee on the roster because they didn't flip him. And now you're adding Cashman to the mix. I would have went with Lamont Gaillard, who is a center out of Georgia. That's a position of need. And I would have took a swing on him. He was someone who probably could have went in round 4 or maybe 5 because he was still available at that time. But you really need help at center. I would have took the swing on offensive line. They need offensive line depth, and really they already have a ton of depth at the linebacker position, especially inside linebacker. Round 6, don't mind the position they took, just mind the player a little bit. Blesson Austin was taken with the 196th pick. He is out of Rutgers. Now, in 2016, going into 2017, he's a highly regarded prospect, but since 2016, he's only played 5 games. And last year, he played 1. That scares me. Again, it's a 6th-round pick. I guess, yes, you could take a flyer in the late rounds and not have to worry about it all that much. But, I mean, what are you really expecting out of this guy? Maybe be your 4th or 5th corner? They desperately need a number 2 corner, and he's not going to be your number 2 corner, especially this year. You're lucky if he stays on the field and stays healthy. He had 2 knee surgeries already at 23 years old. And again, older prospect. Everyone who's taken on day 3 is 23 years old. That bugs me a little bit. So I don't love the 4th, 5th, and 6th round. Obviously, they didn't have a 7th round pick this year. Don't love any of those picks, but their first half of the draft was a little bit better. So as for my overall grade, they get a C from me, which is about middle of the road. I don't love the Quinn pick. Like I said, I would have went Josh Allen, but I think what helps this is the Polite pick in the 3rd round because I think he is going to be a good situational pass rusher who probably gets like 6 sacks this year. That'll be my guess. And hopefully Quinnen develops into one of the better interior defensive linemen in the game. And then you don't have to pay Leonard Williams after this year. And the offensive lineman, I also like adding that depth as well. I think that is a good pick. Like I said, day 3, not great. All older prospects. You take a corner who couldn't stay healthy. You take a linebacker who is undersized, not fast, and had shoulder surgery, if I'm not mistaken. And then you take a tight end who is more of a blocking tight end. Again, don't hate that pick as much as the other 2, but kind of underwhelming day 3 in this draft. So for me, they get a C, which is about middle of the road. Well, let me know what you think in the comments below, what you would grade them, and if you liked what the Jets did. And also, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Matt O'Leary, and I'll talk to you next time.